Hi there. Welcome to my Sunday Night Live. This is Jo Zuleika, founder of the Facebook group Women Who Lead with Heart. And I'm coming on tonight for this week's training on dealing with criticism. A very rich one, and many of you raised your hand saying that you were very interested in hearing a training on such a topic. It doesn't surprise me. It's something that many of us deal with and can resonate with how hard it is to deal with. So if you're watching me live, say hello, send me an emoji. If you're watching the replay, give me a hashtag replay in the comments below so I know who's out there. Leadership is all about collaborating and connecting and communicating with each other. And so I want that from you, and I want that here in this group. So please let us know if you are tuning in. So in the photo that I shared about this night's talk, I had a woman sitting on a couch, and my rhetorical question was, does criticism make you want to curl up on the couch? And do you take it too personally? Do you drop into obsessive thoughts, including self-doubt and being really hard on yourself? If you are in my group, if you're a woman who leads with heart, if you are both vulnerable and out there in the world in a leadership position, but also a feeling woman who is in touch with your emotions, chances are you can get really hooked in this realm of feeling like you die 1,000 deaths when you get criticized. Does that resonate for you? Is criticism really hard for you to take? I have to laugh at myself. I used to realize that when I would receive my performance reviews quarterly, they would be full of tons of praise and lots of comments. And my boss would actually go and ask all of my colleagues about all the things that I did well. But every single time I would get a performance review like that, I would just skim as fast as I could through all the praise and just go straight to where I needed to improve. Go to the areas to improve. You go to section 2. And it was like my brain craved this ego wallop. I couldn't wait. It was like a horror movie. I knew it was going to hurt and I knew I was scared to see it, but I still needed to. And if that's resonant for you, then you know that your brain has this love-hate relationship with criticism. You know, sort of theoretically that it exists, that you're not perfect, that you don't expect yourself to be perfect. You know that everyone has things to work on, and yet it's very personal when you actually receive criticism because you just don't like to hear it. So I'm here to help, right? I want to call out, for starters, that our brains are wired to understand critical thought. That we, out there in the world, making determinations and discernments, we tune our intellect as we are growing to see errors, to see what's wrong and fix it, to distinguish between things. It's getting smart. That's what we do. It's literally math and science. There's a right answer and there's a wrong answer. And if something is wrong, it needs to be fixed or critiqued, right? It's like a paper that's graded. So differentiation is part of our maturing process of growing our intellect. It's part of how we're taught to, grade something or see good, better, best. It's how we are cognizant of good decisions, as we look at all the information available to us and decide. So that is actually the basis for criticism, right? Critical thought is what is embedded in our brains, and it's what we're fighting when we feel oversensitive to criticism and feel it like we take it personally. So while it's helpful for us to become, very attuned to that good, better, best in a work frame, it gets really tricky when it comes to our own worthiness. That discerning a difference when it comes to us can easily become something like, her thighs are thinner than mine, or I feel so ashamed, I'm so stupid, I can't believe I made that mistake. It can easily fall into shame, comparison, or feeling lesser than. And this is not where we want to be. This is the drag on your own, beautiful growth and acceleration in your career, in life. If you are holding yourself back and letting yourself be held back, dogged by these really toxic thoughts that you may pick up in the universe and then amplify in your brain, it's really hurtful and harmful, and it's toxic. So we really need to look at why this is so and how we can change it. I was talking to a friend of mine about this really cool TED Talk that I listened to. I won't go into too much depth, but if you're curious, I'll post it in the link below in the comments. But it was about this social researcher who also resonated with this idea that criticism was something that could absolutely like tackle her and floor her for so much longer than praise. So like me getting my performance review and just focusing on the negative, she as a researcher would often get her papers approved or promoted or published, which is a total triumph as a researcher. But she noticed that win, that lift, that sort of high five, hell yes feeling only lasted, maybe a half a day. And then by the very next day, she'd be thinking of all the things that she wished she had or that she was better at doing, and realized that the triumph didn't last long. And yet, if she received any little piece of failure or any little point of negative feedback, it would absolutely sink her ship. Her morale would tank, she would obsess about it, and it would take her days to recover. And she realized that was disproportionate, that her interpretation of failure and her response to it was disproportionately large compared to how often she actually was winning. And so when she looked at this, she started to ask herself, why do our brains focus on the negative? Why are we so prone to receive criticism and focus on it? And so she did this cool study where there were 100 people that were going to have a surgical procedure, and they were in this medical study, and half of them were told that this surgical procedure had a 70% chance of absolutely curing their problem. And therefore, the people who were in that study reported that they were very enthused and very encouraged about going into the procedure. They thought it was a good thing. Whereas the other half was told 30% chance of this procedure leads to failure. Well, that group was absolutely not excited about the procedure and felt like it was a negative thing. But then when she flipped it and went back to that first group and said, well, actually, you have a 30% chance of this failing. Even though it's 70% chance of it going well, there's a 30% chance of failure. She found that first group flipped their perceptions of whether or not they were feeling optimistic and, okay with going through the surgery. And yet the second group, the group that believed that it had more of, they were more focused on the failure, when she told them, hey, you have a 70% chance of this actually working out, they didn't change their mind about how they felt about the procedure. They were focused on the negative. So if you're somebody who feels very sensitive to criticism, you might actually criticize yourself for being like that. I take everything too personally. I'm like a little sponge. I wish I wasn't like that. Let's start by just forgiving that and taking heart that there are studies that show our brains think that way. And the higher your, discerning intellect, the more likely you are to focus on the negative. So give yourself a break. But at the same time, you don't want to live like this, right? This is not a productive place to be, to constantly be seeing what's wrong or receiving input that makes you feel discouraged, lesser than, diminished. It's not going to support you. It's not going to support you in taking risks. It's not going to support you in feeling optimistic. It's not going to support you in really living your potential, because you do need to be okay with some element of fear. So how, right? So here we get to this moment. How do we improve this propensity that we have to focus on criticism and to feel it very deeply when we don't want to? How do we fix this in ourselves? Well, there is hope, and there is an easy path, not a short path, but an easy path that leads yourself away from feeling tormented and tortured by criticism, both from others and from within, self-criticism. And it's merely a practice. And you're going to laugh when I tell you because you already know the answer. It's focusing on the good. It's actually steering your brain and your thoughts back towards that which is going well. So for that researcher and her example, it's for her to actually really milk the feelings of enjoyment, of victory, of triumph, of achievement, of fulfillment, of acknowledgement every time she has a paper that's published. She needs to throw herself a little party. She needs to get out the virtual confetti and go, yeah, I did it. I'm really good at what I do. She needs to open her journal and journal all about it, about all the feels. She needs to thank herself for showing up and for continuing to do the work. So if we sort of tend to skate over all those good things, the lesson is to swim in it, to drink it, to use it like a face cream, to just indulge in it. It's not going to make you an egomaniac. It's actually going to even things out, right? So it literally is a practice that you need to start to consciously attune your thoughts to when you start going down that rabbit hole, when you fall into the gutter of criticism and then you pile on and think how right it is and how ashamed you are, or how you need to improve, or how you want to lose weight, or how you're not smart enough, or how you feel embarrassed about a mistake you made, about all that stuff that happens. You need to actually take control of your thoughts and tell that pitfall of negativity that it's not your path today. So you don't feed it. If you notice in yourself a tendency to come home and sort of like download the trials and tribulations of the day to your partner, to your mother, to your friends, if you find yourself really sort of like venting off of your gripes, your grouchiness, your grumpiness, everything that went wrong, all the things that could have gone wrong that did, you are feeding that fire. You are actually feeding the fire of criticism and doubt and negativity, even if it feels good, like you're kind of getting something off your chest and you might be getting support from your network. It's actually not helpful. So you want to actually balance that sort of download with all the encouragement that you received from the day. If you need to say something negative, catch yourself and think, and you know what? I actually had a really positive exchange with my boss and I felt so acknowledged and we're working on something and it feels really good. Or I received an email from a customer and they just thanked me for being blah, blah, blah. Actually shining a light on all that is going well is going to help heal your brain and help buffer you from letting yourself go down that rabbit hole in the future. So I suggest you start a gratitude book. You actually do this. Like, you should, but do you? This is mine. It's like a sketchbook. And in it, I write about like all the good things that happen to me and all of the encouragement that I get from the universe and all the things that I've asked for that are coming true and all of the praise and all of the acknowledgement. And it's like watering the garden. Then all of a sudden the flowers grow and I see it and I pay attention to it. And because I'm seeing it and paying attention to it, it's more significant in my life. It's the opposite of the garden that I just drive past every day and as I'm stuck in my thoughts and swirling about all the things that aren't here. So I challenge you to write down everything that's good. Do it for a week. Reread the old pages. Underline the things that are so true that happen all the time. Read it at night before you go to bed. Write in it in the morning. You want more of this in your life, and so you got to start giving it to yourself. Don't make anybody else in charge of your happiness. Go for it. Start writing it all down. And even if you are not really the leader in your corporation, your job, the world. Maybe you're not even working outside the home. You can still lead from the side and bring this into your culture. So it's really easy if you are the boss to start showing gratitude and showing acknowledgement and focusing on the good in every meeting that you're in. You can start with, this is what's going right. What a beautiful way to start a meeting. I just want to center ourselves. This is what's really going right today, this week, this quarter. But let's say you're not the one that writes the meeting agenda. As an attendee, you can still be that voice that's not just Pollyanna, but that says, I stand for things that are going well because it's actually a smart business case for us to see what's working and chase more of it down. It's a way that you can tell the universe what you want. I want more positivity. I'm going to say something positive. I want more acknowledgement. I want to be seen in my job. I want to be somebody to be grateful for me. Then I'm going to give acknowledgement and gratitude to someone else. This is how you stand for what is meaningful for you, and you'd be surprised how it works. So my friend Kate, if she's watching, she'll laugh at me. I always like to talk about movies and how, of course, they're a Hollywood script. Many of them are not very true. Even the biographies are sort of not really true. But I'm thinking a lot about one of my manifestation heroes in cinematic film, and it's Forrest Gump. Ignorance is bliss. Forrest Gump, for many, they thought he was an idiot. They thought he was dumb. Stupid is as stupid does, right? But yet he was immune to so much criticism and judgment that was all around him. Because maybe he was so singular in his focus and unperturbed about what other people thought, he didn't have a response to it. I feel like when you watch that movie, you see a genuine person that focused on what he wanted, like ultimate focus, singular focus, and in every single thing that he undertook, he was so focused on what he wanted and on mastery of that thing, whether it was diving into a foxhole, playing ping pong, catching shrimp, cutting grass for a university. He was the best at it because it gave him joy, because he wanted to, because it had meaning, because it made his heart sing, and that's all that mattered. And by living with that kind of singular focus and like just blinders on and not caring what anybody else has to say about you, I thought it was genius. It felt like he knew the meaning of life, right? So if you ever need some movie juju to help support you on your journey, let me know. I think I'll finish with a couple of quotes that I looked up that I thought would support this talk. I like this one. When you are a giraffe and you receive criticism from turtles, they are only reporting the view from the level they are on. So if you're really sensitive to criticism, consider the source. Don't worry about the people who aren't happy for you. They probably aren't happy for themselves either. And I like this one. I don't have time to hate people who hate me because I'm too busy loving the people that love me. And I would add, and I love me. Too busy to think about hate because I'm all about love. So that's my little bit about criticism and a little bit about self-criticism too. Although I think they're related, they are very different. About how you can support yourself, how you can actually start a practice that will steer your ship away from pointing towards the tormenting feeling of being criticized and focusing on criticism. But I also want to say there's only so much you actually do by yourself. That work like this for leaders requires guidance and like an objective viewpoint to help see you and coach you. And that's why my leadership program is all about dealing with this first. dealing with your own internal thoughts and your own beliefs and your own problematic minefield of dealing with criticism, or dealing with self-doubt, or not having enough self-value. We deal with these things first before we think about managing other people, before we try to go and be like the most brilliant leader that we're going to be, because it starts with ourselves. For you to be a powerful, charismatic, attractive leader to other people that want to follow, you've got to be all that first. You've got to deal with yourself and your own beliefs and your own defensiveness and your own problematic areas. And that's what my leadership program is all about. So if you feel like it's time to shake loose from some of this stuff that's dogging you and get on with feeling free and being the magnificent woman leader that you want to be, reach out, book a call with me. I have open enrollment happening in my women's leadership group all the time. And I love the women that I get to work with. I get to love on them and help show them a higher plane of being and a more free way of living. And it's beautiful work to do. So that's what I've got this Sunday. Leave me a comment in the notes below and go well.